November 26, 1976, the Sex Pistols release Anarchy in the UK, creating and destroying punk rock. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And joining us once again from 2 weeks ago, Christie Buchele and Janae Burris.
Hello.
Thank you for being here still.
Possibly two of the, what do you say? Two pussy bros.
Pussy bros.
Is that what I said?
I don't think he said possibly.
No, he said
no. Two members of the pussy.
two members of the pussy bros.
And two of the most.
And two of the funniest people in
I was going to use important.
Two of the most
important people. Two of the most important people in Denver. Thank you.
Of course.
Gollum riddles.
There's no way we could. I don't know that. Did I say it that fucked up?
I don't know. You just had riddles in the hall.
No, you said that, and then you said our name, so it was like this big reveal. Like, who is he?
Oh,
who is
yes.
it? Who is
so long
it?
ago.
Although I call
2
horseshit
weeks
on
ago.
that riddle challenge because what's in my pocket is not a fucking riddle. It's horseshit.
Oh, God.
How long have you been waiting to vent that?
Apparently
How
it's like
long?
1936.
How long have you been holding up? Once I get my hands on Tolkien, I'm going to ask him a few questions.
Guys, I have a revisionist question that's more sort of a future revisionist. So we're not following the normal pattern again on this episode. But I did have a question before we talk about our brief. They're passing around a lot of petitions online right now about the Trump-Hillary decision, and they're asking the Electoral College to do faithless voting, faithless electors, which means that they haven't actually met. The Electoral College, which is actual people with actual votes, haven't met yet. They made it on December 19th, and they're allowed to change their vote if they want. If they truly believe that the masses didn't make a great decision, they can choose the other candidate. So a lot of people are still hoping, because Hillary did get the popular vote and because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, that they might actually do faithless voting. It's barely ever happened. It's never been consequential. Like, somebody's only done it ever, like, ceremoniously, meaning president already had 270, but this person casted just as a kind of a protest vote. And I don't think this is actually going to happen. It would. But my question, the revisionist question, is, what do you think would happen in America if it did?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier because I'm like, maybe it would, maybe holding on to the last shred of hope. But if that happened, that would confirm so much of the Trump supporters' belief
that it's rigged.
Mm-hmm.
That
whatever happens confirms it for them.
Yeah,
they
that's
can.
true.
They don't care.
I think it would start a civil war potentially.
Yeah.
It would cause a lot of problems, and as much as I don't agree with this decision, I don't know that it would be the right thing to do.
I think it would burn our country down.
Yeah, definitely get ready to move.
Much more likely is that at some point this guy will do something horrible and
Impeachable.
be impeached.
Yeah.
I mean, he might
Right.
be found guilty of fraud next month for Trump University.
Awesome.
We'll be stuck with Mike
Pence.
Pence then.
Yeah,
It's even
That is worse and
I think
scarier.
it's worse, scarier for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is terrible. Oh,
That's-
God.
yeah, it's almost like Trump can't help but say what's on his mind, but Pence obfuscates a little bit.
Can you explain that word to me?
He inveigles, I believe.
Okay.
He is able to be more polite about the horrible shit he believes.
Yeah. More PC about it so that it's maybe palatable.
Like, yeah, people thought he was boring, but he was also the person who championed transvaginal ultrasounds for women who wanted to get an abortion.
Yeah.
So,
He's okay.
and then third in line would be Speaker of the House.
Paul Ryan. I think I would prefer that.
Preferable, yeah.
He almost got me when he was like definitely like he was not trying to support Trump. He was not turning. Everybody was like turncoats all of a sudden, and he was holding out. And I was like, oh my God, this dude might be decent. But
Yeah. I mentioned Samantha Bee the last episode. She had a great line after he like refused to withdraw his endorsement. Was like, I'm glad you didn't invite Trump to your rally because he couldn't help grabbing a pussy like you.
Oh, yep.
And it was just part of like there was so much
Dang
criticism.
girl, good joke.
Yeah. I'm gonna tweet that to her now. With no reference point. But yeah, it's the idea of the GOP establishment being against Trump, but they were all too cowardly to really be against Trump.
right. They're all scared of him. I think that's the problem we're gonna have is none of them are gonna have the spine.
They're not scared of him. They are scared of being ostracized from the party and not being reelected. That is all they are afraid of. They are not afraid of him as a person. Like,
Well, you don't want him. He often, screams that he's going to get revenge on someone. That's his thing that he does. I think that he can get some of their supporters to turn on them. I think that's why they would be afraid of him because they'd prefer his endorsement instead of his disdain or whatever. It'd be preferable. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe that's not the only reason they're afraid of it's him, but I think that he is. They are afraid of him.
And they just don't want to get primaried.
yeah.
But listeners, typically what we do on the show is we'll take a topic from history. One host will present the true version of events. Another host comes up with an alternate history. And the winner becomes the truth. But this episode, we again abandoned that format. And Christie and Janae, you both brought in specific figures from history to talk about. So, Janae, if you want to go first.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Oh, okay. I was just getting curious about people who are part of women's liberation movement or people in history who have helped. And so I just started to look up a little bit about Ida B. Wells. She heard the issue that she was championing was Southern lynchings was her subject, and the why she comes up regarding women's liberation is that she really couldn't get women from the suffrage movement or temperance movement to support her regarding Southern lynchings, and I think it relates to what's happening today. There were a lot of white women that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And it's like they somehow keep trying to separate the issues. Being a woman versus being a person of color or an LGBTQ. It's like, I don't want to be like all of us against the white straight men, but we should all be together for something, not necessarily against the men, but for ourselves, be together for ourselves, because we didn't get to participate in the creation of the Constitution. And we didn't get to participate in, we did. There were a lot of women who helped in the founding of the country, but like even Ida B. Wells, W.E.B. Du Bois he doesn't include her as one of the founding members of NAACP.
Yeah.
Because the men are against us always. Come on, ladies, join together.
Yeah. And I mean, not just like white women breaking for Trump, but Latino men and a larger portion than Romney of African American men.
Yeah. I know too many young African American men who did not vote at all.
Yeah, that's the other.
They were those people who just stepped away, whereas a lot of black women, especially educated black women, came out. They came out in high numbers, and we tried because we know that a lot of times throughout history we are really at the bottom of the pile a lot of times, and so we can't afford to have Trump in office, but
Ida B.
It's not
Wells,
enough of us.
Just another interesting thing about her too. Before she did that, she was the first person to on trains. It was like a Rosa Parks situation.
Yeah,
she was asked to move to the back or give up her seat, and she said no, and that was a huge.
And she tried to sue the rail system for discrimination because some laws had already been passed regarding accommodations based on color. and she won in the lower courts, and then
Lost.
And then she lost and had to pay back what she won, which was $500. Yeah, and she was a teacher, and she lost her parents when her parents and her brother died of yellow fever or something.
Yeah.
And she had to go to work and try to take care of the rest of her siblings, or else they were going to split them apart. And she wasn't really she didn't want to get married, really. She's like, why should I do that? And what little blurb that I read that stuck out of my mind is after she did finally get married and she had her first child, and she was still involved in the movement. But then when she had her second child, she stopped kind of coming out, and Susan B. Anthony kind of threw some shade at her and said, what did she say? Oh, Ida B. Wells seems distracted.
That's like the most passive aggressive, like sort of like misogynist, but like kind of hidden agenda.
It's the same. Trump is sort of from that party of like, oh, women can't work while they're pregnant, or women who have kids, or
it's a liability.
It's a liability, and I think Susan B. Anthony was kind of like, I had that second baby, can't get shit done, huh? Maybe you should just stay at home with your babies then.
Well, it's like the people who attacked Hillary Clinton by saying what happens when she gets her period without realizing that she is a 69-year-old woman.
And that we're constantly on our periods, just so you know.
Also that's the other part.
And we're just still doing it all anyway.
It's not werewolves. Women don't lose their minds.
Right. I was like, I bet you didn't even know we were on our period most of the time. You should just throw that out there on men. Sometimes spring it on them. I'm on my period.
After any conversation with a man, just whisper, by the way.
By the way, you like those eggs?
I think it'd be better if you had survey cards with a yes or a no and see if they could determine any apparent difference. And then have the prestige at the end. What do you
Yeah, I would laugh. I'm going to start doing it after my set. Oh, you guys like that? That was good. I was on my period the whole time.
You should.
Suckers. This set was powered by Menzies.
I say that a lot on stage. I'd be like, I shouldn't even be here. I'm on my period. I say it at the beginning.
I can't do my set right now.
This is crazy, you guys. I'm on my period. This isn't even safe.
This isn't safe. This isn't safe for any of us. I need the men to leave the room. I need any women who are pregnant or might be pregnant.
That fucks it up.
Yeah.
No magnets. No microphones. This is a wireless mic. I can't use a wireless mic. I am on my period.
Nobody can order the chicken fingers. The smell makes me sick right now. Please.
Yeah. No, please keep bringing me chicken fingers. The smell is the only thing.
Yeah.
Please turn off your phone. It's like the same thing as with airplane and bees.
Yeah. Airplane mode, please.
I need that. Give me that. That's my joke. Funny. Sorry, everybody. I called it.
You can have it.
I just want that one. Just that part.
Airplane mode.
Please turn your phones to airplane mode. Okay. I'm on my period.
Go for it.
I never talk about my period on stage. Never.
Either.
I don't.
Weird.
Maybe just the misogyny in the world has made us afraid to do it.
What do you think Ida B. Wells' ultimate legacy was?
She got the conversation started in Europe regarding the brutality of the Southern whites, because Northern Americans in cities just didn't believe her. They're like, nah, that's like, you talked before about sort of suppression of information, and you just these people, they don't know any people of color. They just know they want their jobs back, or they don't know anyone who's been abused. These people didn't know anyone who had been lynched. They hadn't seen it in the cities because it was happening in the South. So she's from Mississippi, and it was happening a lot there. Black men were being accused of raping white women, and that's why they were being lynched. But what was happening was it was directly connected to economics. Mm-hmm. Whenever the Southern whites were not doing well when money was low, when cotton was short or too expensive.
When they viewed a black man as competing with them.
Exactly. Lynchings were used to keep black people from economic growth specifically. So if you had a black person and you saw them doing well, they needed to be lynched. Something would happen where it was like, because they directly tied it to this black man doing well is taking money from you. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we have to keep this down. We can't let them do well. I think that when Obama inspired a resurgence of some of that. Look how fucking well they're doing. They're crushing it.
Obviously, it was a way to use fear to reinforce not just economic, but like social order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where like black people could not. I mean, Emmett Till was apparently just talking to a white woman a little bit informally, and that was it.
Yeah, because he was from Chicago and he didn't know that you can't do that in the South. You're not allowed to talk to them. They keep saying he whistled at him. I always find that hard to believe that he did that at the.
Yeah, even
to
if
be so
did,
disrespectful
though,
at that time as a man. I mean, these are church people, black people in the 50s.
Was he 13, 12?
He's 13. Yeah. He's from Chicago, and they tried to. The story I always heard in our history books in school, because fuck those history books anyway, is that he whistled at her, and I just find it hard to believe, because black people at that time, and still, you are taught to be polite for the sake of for your life.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt his mother sent him down to the South, and he didn't know that you can't whistle at somebody's wife, let alone a white woman.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Chicago, I imagine that Chicago of northern cities has a pretty long history of racial violence, and that white supremacist structure was still in place there and is still in place today. Not necessarily all over the country. I mean.
I think they just tried, in our history books growing up, they just tried to place some of the blame on him, because how do you explain to school children that that's just the fucking way it goes down in the South? Who knows what he did? He made eye contact with somebody. He didn't yield on the sidewalk. Who knows how insignificant. They just tried to. I think we do it all the time in today's culture, try to place some of the blame on the victim, figure out why they deserve what they got. And so they added that into our books. He whistled. Who's the witness on this shit? He whistled at a white woman.
Yeah.
Therefore,
the people who killed him.
Yeah.
And they get to
write the history. Going to Europe and getting them to listen to her story and getting them to put some attention on the issue of the lynchings is her legacy, because it's happening now. Who is it? Just this idea that black people are being oppressed, for it to be recognized in Europe and for other countries to acknowledge it and bring exposure to it it could possibly help hold America accountable.
Yeah.
Because we can't, from within America, we can't hold America accountable. We can't so we need some outsider to cast some judgment.
It's like going to a therapist. You need an outsider to look at your own shit. And she did that. And she did she was a prolific writer and wrote for a lot of newspapers, black newspapers. And anyway, Ida B. Wells, I'm sure somebody should be working on her story. Taraji P. Henson will get something done. Kerry Washington, get it done.
No, Christie, you also brought in someone you wanted.
I was going to talk about Sophie Scholl and the White Rose, which was a few different college students in Germany during World War II, but there was specifically Hans and Sophie Scholl, brother and sister, and they were printing underground anti-propaganda, not propaganda. They were underground journalism about the truth about Hitler and things like that.
Yeah, they would distribute these pamphlets with this call to action for the German people to rise up against the Nazi regime, about the injustice that was going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah.
And there was a few professors and students, but Sophie Scholl is kind of
she is the famous one, if you will, I guess. But her and Hans got caught distributing flyers at a college, I believe. They got caught and they got put in jail, and they were put through court and found guilty within, I believe it was 3 days. And ultimately they were both executed. But they gave her the most interesting thing, and there's actually a movie, it's in German, about this. It might still be on Netflix, but the actress does an amazing job of showing like her conviction. Because she was 16 years old and she was a female, the cop investigating her tried to give her so many opportunities to act like, oh, I didn't know what was going on. Like, he tried to give her so many opportunities to let her off the hook so that she could be considered, oh, I was just a young girl under the guise of my older brother. I didn't really know what was going on. So she could have walked away from her cause at any time. And he made it very clear that if you just denounce what you did, I'll let you live. Like, we'll let you live. And it ends up showing his admiration for her cause so much. But the conviction she had, and to the end, was absolutely incredible. And they were, again, executed within 3 days. So another part of it, I think that's really important from that story is, like, Germany was a democratic country before Hitler came to power. They elected a president just like we did. And they went through the Depression, and it was really hard. And they, things changed so quickly within a matter of 5 years. I mean, this was, their whole justice system was executing people after 3 days. They were not getting the trial. Like, they were expecting to be in jail for 3 months and hoping the war might end in time. And she was really like, her family was hopeful, and they're like, we'll help. And then like put him through trial to execution within 3 days. And she could have walked away from it, but she didn't, even knowing the consequences. And, just that story of that conviction of sticking with it, to me, is like really powerful. Right now, I think it's easy to be scared. There's also a lot of talk of like, just, it'll be fine, just let it go. And there's a certain, like we opened with that discussion, there's a certain idea of just letting the transfer of power be peaceful, just to keep the waves, keep the tide low or whatever, because we can survive this. But I also think it's very important to pay attention to the Trump regime and pay attention to what's going on in order to not turn a blind eye. So
not administration, regime.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird.
Yeah. And so I think it's just really important for us to pay attention. My only solace right now is that I feel like transparency is maybe easier. I'm hoping.
Well, let's see if we can see those taxes
because of
finally
of the internet and because of this dissemination of information. Like, we don't need a Sophie or Hans Scholl as much, as long as we keep speaking the truth and sharing what we know to be true.
That's we are recording this, I'm going to admit, a few weeks before you're hearing it. But I believe today Trump did break tradition by not allowing the press to join him when he went to meet with Obama, which is something presidents don't do.
Yeah.
But there was a couple quotes from Sophie Scholl in the White Rose that I thought I would share at the very end here.
Yeah.
Sophie Scholl said once, you must stand for what is right, even if you stand alone. I believe she said that very shortly before execution. But the motto of the Black Rose, which maybe some people...
The White Rose.
The White Rose, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Which maybe some people might relate to right now, is we will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. The White Rose will not let you live in peace.
In the spirit of sharing quotes, and in the spirit of the weird position and I think, Zach, you might be feeling this too, as a white male who bears so little of the risk associated with the Trump presidency, but so I'm going to go to a quote by the abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison from the first issue of his newspaper. I will not equivocate. I should remember this fucking quote. Sorry. Will not equivocate. I will not excuse, and I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard. And this was a man who supported John Brown, who supported, Harriet Tubman, who supported so many people. And is like, to me, the idea of like a good ally.
Yeah.
Who's doing what he can, but keeping the focus on the people who are suffering.
Yeah. I was wondering this because it's something my roommate, who was also a white male, was feeling yesterday. He felt like when he was walking down the street, people were like looking at him. Like, and it might totally be in his mind.
I think that we're all having some shit like that.
But we are all feeling like people are looking at each other like enemy or friend or victim.
I have felt the same way in the past couple of days. I'm not going to lie. Like I am, because like it is primarily white men who are the biggest supporters of Trump. And like I have like an embarrassment walking around because of that.
I can sense that. I went to the grocery store and it was quiet, super quiet. And I could just feel like people around me were nervous around me, but then also I was feeling nervous around them. It was both of us kind of projecting and not knowing anything about each other. And but then we were projecting. It's like, so now the fear is real because we both projected something onto the other one. They think I'm judging them, and I think they're laughing at me, and it's like, it feels
you said
so
you
real.
like heard laughter, and you're like,
on that night when I was coming home sulking, I was trying to get home at 11:30, and the whole thing hadn't really even been announced yet. It was just that the numbers looked awful, and I was like, anyone who is laughing, if there is mirth and joy going on right now, who are those people? But I specifically felt like they were laughing at me as I walked, because once I got a little further, they stopped. It just like stopped suddenly. And I felt like it was at me. You don't have to look at a person. You know which direction the sound is coming from.
Yeah.
And I was just like, am I tripping, or are they laughing at me right now?
Yeah. It was... Yeah, you're trying to figure out who your
I haven't seen my roommate
who your friends
at all.
are. It's very weird.
I haven't seen him.
And he's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him the night of, when I was coming home, watching it in the lobby with other people from our building. And in my building, I know it's a lot of young white professionals, and they are Trump supporters. Not all of them, but some definitely.
Another thing that I've been thinking about too, that I was listening to the Washington Post podcast a lot, Presidential, which just is supposed to come out with a Trump. They had it lined up that they would cover one president, starting at the first president every week, until this week they were releasing the episode about Trump. Or they were going to release whoever got elected. And the one that that one, as well as More Perfect, which is a Radiolab offshoot, we're talking both about the characteristic of empathy being the thing that's missing in America now, and makes maybe the best leader characteristic is empathy. And the fact, like, to me, the biggest difference between Republican and Democrat is empathy. And the fact that what's mine is, to me, when I look at Republicans, I can understand being like, I earned this money. It's for me. I don't want to share it. I earned it. I do understand that. But the difference I see between it is Republicans are like, this is mine. You can't have it. And Democrats are like, no, I can understand I'm able to put myself in other people's shoes, and I see the greater good of contributing to the pot in the center. That's the biggest difference that I'm seeing. And the lack of empathy in the new president-elect is the most terrifying thing in the world. Okay, good night.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to move on to plugs in a minute, but a couple things that I feel like I particularly want to mention is that my girlfriend and I have a holiday tradition of giving to a charity, and I think there's a lot that could use help right now. And I'm sorry, I think specifically because you guys are here. A few episodes ago, we posted links to Trans Youth Education Support of Colorado, and One Colorado You can find the links to that in the show notes for the Queen Liliuokalani episode. And I know some favorites of mine are the Southern Poverty Law Center. There's the American Refugee Council, the Center for Reproductive Rights.
The ACLU, obviously, also is a big one.
I don't know if you two have any you want to mention also.
Planned Parenthood, if you're wanting to go really local in Denver, the Gathering Place is a great place for homeless women, helping them get on their feet, because actually the majority of homeless people are single mothers with children. And so that's a huge place.
What's the one that Jordan had?
That was it.
That was the one, yeah.
Trans Youth Education and Support of Colorado.
Yeah. That was her same thing. She volunteered for them a lot. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is my question, maybe to end it on like a lighter note. What do you... For me, we're all comedian. Well, most of us are comedians. And are you all comedians? Are you a comic?
I've done it, but I don't.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I wasn't being like rude.
What's your Facebook status? Is your Facebook status comedian?
Okay. So most of us are comedian. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I do this as full time as I possibly can. And a lot of times I sit and I go, what am I doing? Like, does this even, none of this matters. I get upset about a bad set, or I get upset about this thing. So I guess my one silver lining to take away from this is that I don't have to feel that way. I don't have to question, like, why is this job important anymore? So I guess that's my question is, like, how do you feel empowered, or what's kind of any silver lining you guys have found from this catastrophe? No, go ahead. Yeah. But that's mine, is feeling I don't have to question whether or not I feel like this is important anymore. I don't feel like I will be doing that ever again, really.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
I personally feel like one thing that will come out of this over the next 4 years is I think a lot more people will pay a lot more attention than they did before, which is probably on the whole a good thing for participation. Like we said, part of the reason this happened is it was a historically low turnout.
Yeah, it makes comedy important. Just being vocal about any issues. This idea that people, we talked about on the last episode, the idea that maybe some women don't even know if they've been assaulted, and they don't care what's going on with or they don't know the type of legislation that Pence has gotten passed, or that what he's interested in. We can talk about that from the stage, and they don't have to. We don't have to wait for them to read it in the newspaper. We say it in our set, and now we've got them thinking. It's really empowering. Like, we can actually make changes. You know, it's on a smaller level, audience to audience, individual to individual, but we can do that. And I think that everybody, since we don't have Clinton, we didn't get what we wanted. I think it's a call to action now. People are going to be more involved. Just more involved than ever. The young people are going to do something on more local levels, I think.
Yeah.
Getting involved.
And I think for me, I don't know that I do the kind of comedy that can make a difference, but
of course you can. Of course you do.
I want to work harder at that. But I think for me, the thing I think about is that this is the country that elected Trump, but this is also the country of Ida B. Wells. This is the country of Susan B. Anthony. This is the country of Bell Hooks. This is the country of Angela Davis. This is the country that produced so many people who were written out of the Constitution, but who looked at the spirit of it and said, this belongs to me too, and started a fight. And I think
gotta start some fights.
The men who founded this country had huge flaws. They had huge sins. But when they decided to create a country based on an ideal, they wrote the demise of their own supremacy in there. And it's not given, it's taken. So we got work to do, and I think there's people who will do it.
Yeah, there's women. The girls are going to change the world. The women are going to step up. We're finally going to get together and do
Talk
that.
to each other. Don't be competitive with each other.
Real quick, mentioned, of course, Pussy Bros the first Friday of every month at Comedy Room.
Yes, come out. We talk about our periods all the time. Come out.
We also have a show coming up January 8th, at the Boulder Comedy Show. Me and Janae and Rachel Weeks are planning on recording an album sooner rather than later, so that's kind of a dry practice for that. We might actually record the album for an audience of only women. That's an idea that we're tossing.
That would be
around.
so good.
Yeah, so if you want to kind of get a preview of that would be awesome. Come check that out. Otherwise, just follow us on Facebook to get information on those things coming up.
All right, so I think I'll say Empty Girlfriend one more time, Christie's podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Because we didn't mention, I don't think, this episode. But otherwise, yeah, I think we'll be back the first weekend in December with a more traditional show. I know these last two have
Thank you
been
for being patient with our anger. We just couldn't focus very well.
We're all fresh off the election. We had to record early because Brian and I have vacations coming up. But yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a more typical show, but thanks for sticking with us through a little bit more of a heavier one.
And honestly, Christie and Janae, thank you for being here and for being willing to have this discussion.
You're very lucky. You're white men. I don't know why I don't know why we did this.
Wait,
I'm kidding.
Oh, shit.
No, there are a couple of the good ones. Don't worry.
No, we're kidding. We're kidding.
It's a terrible thing to say, really.
But if you're listening, take care of each other.
Yes.
And find something to do.
Yeah.
For everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Have a good time.